have to say I find this a little offensive. Any sort of implied comparison between what the Soviets did in Afghanistan and what we are doing in Afghanistan. The Soviets invaded that country, they decimated villages, they did everything they could to eliminate traditional life in Afghanistan. They killed off the village elders, they killed the mullahs, and they did everything they could to impose atheism. And they were rejected, and they were rejected rightly. I think even a comparison between us and the British in Afghanistan is offensive. Go to well, not everyone can go to Afghanistan, I shouldn't use that even rhetorically, but I was just in Afghanistan, and never has a military been more concerned simply with creating a better life for foreign people, I submit to you, than our military today. Talk to anyone there, from the military officers to the folks who work with the civilian agencies to the folks who work with the UN. One UN official told me, no country is more popular in Afghanistan than the United States of America. And there's a reason for that. Katrina warns against inflaming Afghanistan. Who is inflaming Afghanistan? I submit to you it's the Taliban, who's throwing acid in the face of girls for going to school, assassinating local officials for no other offense than trying to give their villages a better life, killing and intimidating farmers who don't grow opium. And who is going to stop them? Who is going to stop them? No one will stop them unless we do it, and we do it at the head of the coalition there. So we are not the Soviet Union, and what we're doing in Afghanistan is nothing like what the Soviets did. And I saw this in Iraq, too, which I traveled to a couple times. We were the most trusted force in Iraq. In the most terrible days in Iraq, where I agree probably with Katrina what she would say about the Bush's mishandling of the war in certain important respects in that period. This was a society descending into chaos. From neighborhood to neighborhood, you would have the Shia death squad warring with the Sunni extremists allied with al-Qaeda. And when the Shia death squad would kill a Sunni, the Sunnis would go to al-Qaeda for protection, and they would blow up the Shia. And when the Shia were blown up, they would go and kill more Sunnis. And on and on and on it went. And only one force was capable of stopping it. And one force did stop it. And again, that was the United States military. And again, folks in this country on the left said the surge was going to be a disaster. It's reckless. It's never going to work. It saved that country. And the same way we saved Iraq, we can save Afghanistan. It's very difficult work. It requires sacrifice by 19-year-old kids who are incredibly brave and idealistic, but it can be done. And with Iraq, we have a chance. It may not happen, it's still up in the air, but we have a chance that over the long term there will be a decently governed, reasonably stable, more or less democratic ally opposed to extremism in the heart of the Arab world. And trading Saddam Hussein for that is a huge deal. And in Afghanistan, same thing. There's a chance, as long as we have the patience, as long as we have the smarts, as long as we have a commander-in-chief like Barack Obama, who so far is doing the responsible thing, that we can actually create a better country there that will have a beneficent effect in the entire region, including, most importantly, in Pakistan. Just a couple points on George W. Bush. I think Katrina is right to criticize the messianism that was there, especially early on in the administration. There was a high-handedness in the first term, but there's a great deal of continuity between the later second-term Bush administration and what Barack Obama is doing now. And I think people, they resort to a caricature when they talk about the Bush administration, because Jacques Chirac didn't like him in the first term. But you look around the world, and if you had said 8 years ago, we're going to have better relations with India and with Pakistan, We're going to have better relations with Japan and with China. Few people would have thought that possible, but the Bush administration actually managed it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you both. That concludes the formal part of our debate. I would like to ask any members of the audience with cell phones to please silence them at this point. And I'd also like at this point to invite the audience to put questions to Rich and Katrina, and there are microphones at the end of each aisle here for that purpose. And if tonight is like previous Hauenstein Center events, many of you will want to ask questions. In fact, it's happening now. As moderator, I will not allow speeches from the floor, but will enforce what I call the Jeopardy rule. In other words, please express your statement in the form of a brief question. This to allow as many as possible to participate. Okay, why don't we start with, looks like we have more people. Let's start over there first.
Okay, I'm the chairman of the economics department at Aquinas College. Mr. Lowry, you neglected to respond to Katrina's statements about the expansionary policies of FDR, how the economy expanded into 1936. And I'd like to know how you respond to why the economy declined into 1939, except for the lack of spending when Roosevelt eased off the accelerator.
Sure. Thank you for your question. I meant to get to it, but I had so much to get to and I got overexcited and I forgot about it. But the 1930s, look, this is a huge historical argument. We're not going to settle it tonight. One, I would point out that one of Barack Obama's key economic advisors, Christina Romer, says that fiscal policy in the 30s basically had no effect one way or the other. Again, it wasn't big enough to make an effect one way or the other, and it was monetary policy that was the key variable. I think the economy declined later on in the 30s for a couple reasons. One, the Federal Reserve, which was basically at the root of the Great Depression, tightened policy when it shouldn't. Two, Social Security, the payroll taxes kicked in right around that time, which was another suppressant to economic growth. But the biggest problem was that FDR had failed to put the private sector economy on the path to on a sustainable basis of economic growth. And yes, the numbers ticked up some in the mid-1930s. You can argue that's a dead cat bounce, and if you go down far enough, you're going to come back a little bit. But it wasn't sustainable, and we hadn't achieved recovery. And I think what we can all agree on is no matter what we've been told in the mythology, FDR did not end the Great Depression. It was World War II that ended the Depression.
Next question on this side.
There's an expression that says sometimes you have to look up to see bottom. When Barack Obama took over as president, he succeeded in the order of things from a president whose first order of business was to impose secrecy. And my question is, given the attitude of Bush and Cheney and the involvement in the war in which many people were misled, and the situation in which the actual earnings of individuals remained flat, and instruments were created which no one understood, which means fraud, how can you justify that Barack Obama has anything but a very serious problem to resolve and needs all of our support, and the snarkiness needs to disappear?
Thank you.